controversial subjects with the facts can be tense, but we are ASAP Science here to make things make sense.
Since we're going to be talking a lot about men who have sex with men, let's just play something from one of our pop girlies.
Demonetized on YouTube.
Oh, no, it has to be over a certain amount of time.
Yeah, that's why I stopped at.
Also, it was that's from my cell phone. It's so fuzzy wuzzy that like YouTube won't know. They don't know what's going on.
We'll see if this video disappears within 5 minutes. Now you know.
But maybe it will be taken down because we said YouTube doesn't know what's going on.
They're listening. Yeah, I guess obviously many studies and stuff will focus on men who have sex with men, but obviously
it is
not.
Yeah, a lot of studies I have are about heterosexual people,
that's interesting. Okay,
needle users, things like that.
Yep.
Other people who are at
So
risk.
where do we want to start? We're talking about PrEP today, which if you don't know, stands
Expose.
for...
Are you on it?
What?
Are you on PrEP?
Oh, no, I'm not.
Me neither.
It stands for
Should we be?
pre-exposure prophylaxis. We're not having this conversation on the pod, by the way.
Me trying to just be like, let's just be real, and you're like, we're not talking about that. Okay, fair. Although the research made me think, like, why not be on it?
Well, we'll get to that at the end. I figured you were
Still
doing
trying
like
to
some
do
explanation, and I'll talk about the pros and benefits at the end.
The pros and benefits is all
Sorry,
good.
yeah, the pros and cons.
There
are
are
told you, I'm
cons.
tired. I had a shower and I'm sleepy.
You need to go jump in a cold lake. There are cons,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
which I think are worth talking
And
about.
all I need for me is one con, and I'm spooked. You know, it's like
Yeah.
one bad comment. Ooh.
Okay, well.
Let's just explain what it is, because there's lots of people who don't know what PrEP is.
Okay, so it is a medication. It's a series of drugs, and we'll get into the actual biochemistry of them. Kind of complicated, but for now, overarching, it's a preventative medication for not getting HIV. And it works really well if done and taken properly.
Correct.
Which I think is one of my big takeaways.
Yeah,
from
and
all
I
this.
think we thought it'd be interesting to talk about. It is obviously very common in the gay community. Lots of our friends take it. It's meant for people who are like have a higher exposure, or whether that's through sex, whether that's through needles, or whatever the circumstance. It's just like lots of our friends take it because they might be hooking up with other people, regardless of whether they're practicing safe sex or not. It's just like an extra element of protection that can give them peace of mind that they never have to worry if, they're partying and they end up having sex with someone and they don't realize.
Yeah.
Or someone
so it is a mix of chemicals, kind of. Like there's tenofovir disoproxyl fumarate.
Cute.
Also called TDF. Way easier to remember. And then there's FTC, which also has a confusing name, but there's no point in even saying them. But the
Federal Trade Commission?
like honestly, like it's like easier to say that because it's so complicated. But essentially two separate biochemicals that have different names depending on which brand you're taking. So a popular one is like Truvada.
Yeah.
And that is a mix of the two chemicals that are necessary to elicit the effective responses in your body that these studies have done.
Yeah, and I recall that they those two in particular, like they put them together because the success rate of both of them at the same time is like really high.
And so what it's doing is it's blocking HIV reverse transcriptase, which I think we'll get into a little bit when you talk about how HIV works.
Yeah, would it be better to talk about that first,
I think so,
then?
maybe.
Okay.
Explain
Yeah,
that.
because obviously, like we're wanting to understand what is HIV. Most people understand that it is a virus that infects people, and most people have the image that it's primarily like in the queer community, but that's not entirely true. But obviously, like there was like an AIDS epidemic. HIV, when it's exacerbated or reaches a certain point, becomes AIDS. And so let's just talk a little bit about what that is. So obviously it's a virus. You can only contract it if it enters into your bloodstream and you're infected with it. So that can either happen through like blood, semen, vaginal fluids, these kinds of things, or breast milk even it can transfer through. And then once it's inside, it basically attacks your immune system, in particular T helper cells. Those cells obviously play a major role in your immune system. So it binds onto them, goes into them, puts its genome inside of them. It's a retrovirus, so it's putting RNA inside that is then transcribed into DNA. And it also has like a bunch of replication enzymes that enter those cells. And basically, like most viruses, and most people are probably more familiar with it because of COVID, it's like once a virus is in you, it's just like replicating, using your body's machinery and your cell's machinery to make more and more and more of itself. And that's ultimately what it does. So it's taking over your T cells, and the longer it's there, the more likely it is to destroy those T cells as well. it can end up making 10 billion new virions. Virions? How do you say that?
Yeah,
Virions
I
each
didn't know.
day. But the interesting thing about HIV in particular that a lot of people maybe don't know about is that there can be a really long latency period. So you could be infected and for 8 years, you may not have any symptoms at all. If you're not tested, you may not know you have it. You could be tested and find out you have it. But eventually, if you're not tested and treated ahead of time, it will kill those T cells. And that's when people talk about like their T cell count. If it falls below 200 cells per cubic millimeter of blood, that becomes acquired immune deficiency syndrome or AIDS.
Yeah. So the replication of the virus involves reverse transcriptase, which is what PrEP, when taken and you have enough of this drug in your blood, it'll block the ability for that enzyme to replicate the HIV virus or the HI virus. So yeah, it's kind of like, it's pretty incredible science. It's like a more recent discovery in many ways. And that's why there are a lot of like in our life, because we know a lot of people, like men who have sex with men, it's like a common thing amongst people to be on PrEP.
As like a regular, not just if you're going to hook up with someone, but taking it like every day, all the time.
Okay, so then this is the thing. There's also something called PEP, which is a way that you take the similar drugs if you think you have been exposed or had unsafe sex.
I didn't know about that.
So
like
yeah,
as almost like a day
a preventative,
after
a preventative post having something
like exposure, post-exposure.
Post-exposure. Yeah, but that is like not as effective. And really, like my main takeaways from reading all of these studies is that you have to be really regimented with your intake of PrEP, because the sort of percentage of like efficacy really can vary based on whether or not you are taking the pill every day.
Yeah.
Which I
Do you have the
didn't
number
know.
on? Yo, I did know that.
Oh, okay.
Just because I've asked people about it, and that I don't know. You may have these numbers written down. I didn't, because I kind of knew you were taking that aspect of it.
Just tell
But
me
like how many? There's like a certain amount of days before, if you know you're going to be exposed. Say like you have a partner who is non-detectable or has HIV, and you're wanting to have sex. Like there's a period of time before. I don't know if it's like 2 to 5 days that you should have taken PrEP to have it be at its most effectiveness.
Yeah. So like
Anecdotally, I think someone told me it's sometimes 2 days, but please don't quote me on that.
No,
I think 5 days.
So the on-demand or intermittent PrEP means taking pills only on days before or after having sex, and it's called a 2-1-1 dosing or something like that.
Okay.
2 pills between 2 to 24 hours before sex, 1 pill 24 hours after, and 1 pill another 24 hours after. But that is like not ideal. That's not going to give you the famous like 99%.
Famous.
No, well, everyone says like
But
all
yeah,
of our
you're
friends.
right.
It is famous. 99% efficacy. That's what everyone says. They're like, I'm on
Yeah.
PrEP and it's 99% effective. And that's not when you're doing these types of dosing.
Right.
That's when you're constantly on it. And the different studies say either it takes a week or 2 weeks or a month to get up to that sort of like, essentially when they're studying people, they're measuring how much of the PrEP or the chemicals from PrEP are in their blood. And when the chemicals are high, which means those people are dosing properly for long periods of time, that's when you get the 99% effective. And it's also only 99% effective through sex. If you're sharing needles, it goes down to 74% effective. So that's kind of interesting, because it's just like, I don't know the biochemistry of why, but they know that. And then some people who are taking it 4 pills a week as opposed to 7 pills a week, which you're supposed to be doing, like they're forgetting.
Right.
It goes down to like 94% effective. So it's like, essentially you're trying to keep these chemicals in your body
circulating through your blood at all times.
Like it's a physiological biochemical like response that your body needs to have enough of these chemicals in your body in order for it to work, which I think is like really important for people to understand, that like those really incredible percentages can change quite quickly if you're not being regimented about it, which I'm sure when you go to a doctor and before you take any of these drugs, you should talk to a healthcare professional. And I think you have to in Canada to get it. They'll explain that to you, I'm sure. But it's like, sometimes you can forget or whatever. It's like, it's really important that you like stay regimented with this if you're wanting to tout that it is going to be 99% effective through sex.
I don't have any like regular pills I have to take, but anytime I've taken like antibiotics or anything that you have to take for, extended period of time, I really wish I had, like, there's some really cool inventions nowadays to help you
Oh yeah, there's like
do your pills.
what, like alarms or something.
Or like even like buttons on top of like the top of it for you to know if you've taken it already, or like sometimes they lock after you've like I've just seen like really interesting contraptions that help you to not have to remember if you've taken the pill. Because I always like I've had to, even like I take vitamin D pills, that's actually one, and I sometimes I'm like, have I already taken it? So now I only take it if I'm about to brush my teeth, so that it's always linked.
Smart.
So then I never really forget if I brush my teeth because I can kind of tell. And so like that's when I do it.
Have you seen those like funny memes on TikTok of like a guy being like been on prep for 3 months, like constantly taking my prep pill, but never having sex? Like, it's like funny like things are just being like you like going to my doctor and like being like I need prep and then like never getting laid. But like it is so okay. So there's something like
that's
culturally
the hard part,
like interesting about this because also there's like HIV vaccines that are really like becoming more as options. Like with prep, there's a lot of these amazing things happening, and they think that they're going to be harder to initiate into society because of this high stigma of being
the HIV vaccine,
that you're someone who's a higher risk.
I see. To like go and get a vaccine because you don't think people will take that?
That's what they've said. They've done a lot of like studies,
like a vaccine, so you don't have to take a pill every day. It's like you. Get
the vaccine they think
it's every day.
They think it should be mixed with prep.
Oh, okay.
They're like, why not in these specific groups? Okay. Should we not have all of this access? When we think about what they're doing is like a cost analysis in the study I was reading, and being like the amount of money it costs to deal with someone who gets infected with HIV versus paying for a vaccine and prep even for a year amongst high risk populations. The cost benefit works out to just pay for the vaccine and pay for the prep. We're still at a place where like scientists are trying to like use public health analysis to be like, this should all be free.
Like it's cheaper if we just invest in public health.
And this is like a world scale thing.
Also in so many categories where it's like, if we invest in public health and people, we end up saving money.
I know. I can't stand our lack of foresight. But like, and this goes all across all over the world. There's HIV pandemics in all different parts of the world. For us in like the Western world, like as like queer men or people who have sex with men, we talk about it a lot more, I think, in our communities. So we would be the community that like maybe like a Toronto like public health
would be targeting.
Outreach would be targeting. And it's kind of made me think like, am I that? Like, am I not on prep because I'm okay? Well, we'll talk about the safe sex thing, which I think we both are like, we just would rather wear condoms. But it's like, why not also be on it? When I think about, I was sort of like the study was interesting to me. It was like, am I thinking that by going on it, there's like a stigma there? And it made me think.
A stigma to going on prep?
Yeah. Like they said there's an issue with getting people to go on prep and get the HIV vaccine because people don't want to admit that because of stigma that we have inside, they don't want to admit that they are a part of a population that needs to.
Yeah, I would say like anecdotally, it seems that lots of people who are comfortable identifying as gay or queer are comfortable taking prep. Yeah. That's the way it seems to me, just like in my circle of friends. But obviously, to your point, on the extreme side of thing, there are people who are closeted. There are people who are not comfortable getting a prescription for a drug.
Whoa.
Right? That maybe are like, I don't want to go. That and then there's everyone in between. Some people who are just like, I don't see myself as somebody who needs that, or who's, I think it's not harder, but I think a challenging point to be in is if like you're not that sexually active. Like some people are taking it because they know every week they might be hooking up with someone, or they're going to like sex parties or whatever.
And we didn't need to talk about people wanting to have bareback condomless sex.
Yeah, exactly. There's people,
that was like my annoying condescending tone came out, because like that's the thing I worry about.
Fair, but I mean,
talk about later.
I lost my train of thought.
No, you're saying like that there's so many different, like people are maybe not taking it because they're thinking they're not.
Yeah, they're like, I'm gonna have sex once a month. Yeah. Do I really want to take a pill every day if I'm gonna like have it like a randomly, like maybe not for the next 3 months?
Okay, well let's go into any side effects, because that's what you were saying. Maybe there were.
Yeah, well I guess like basically these were just like negative things about PrEP. So some evidence does suggest, though it is sometimes seen as controversial, that the rise of something like PrEP has created a rise in less condom usage in anal sex, which has created rising rates of other STIs.
Gonorrhea.
outside of HIV. So even though you're on PrEP, yes, maybe you have like a great chance of not being infected because you're 99% protected. But a meta-analysis of 18 studies found that STIs among men who have sex with men who were given PrEP were 25 times higher for gonorrhea, 11 times higher for chlamydia, and 44 times higher for syphilis than men who have sex with men who were not given PrEP.
Okay, wow. So I was thinking more about like apparently it can give you nausea and headaches for like a week. But like I'm like only in 1% to 10% of people like can you get a little nausea, but it goes away. But that is why I'm not on PrEP.
But that's not fair. I mean, if you know that information, you can still be wearing condoms.
Exactly. Okay, so this is the thing that made me think. It made me think, okay, I think having safe sex is just the most important thing in the world. But it's like, I will never not have safe sex. That being said, there was a part of me that was like, well, why not also be on PrEP? Because like, whatever. Like, I was just like kind of getting into the science. I was like, this is so revolutionary, like fun. But actually now I'm like, those studies were the ones that I'd read that really made me think about this a lot, where I'm like, gonorrhea, like a lot of people think, okay, well, you can take antibiotics. I'm like,
yeah, that is the difference about like obviously HIV. There's a hope for a cure in the future and some promising leads, but these other like gonorrhea, syphilis, all these are treatable.
But then I'm like, we understand cell biology. All of those infections can lead to cancer. All of those infections can have long-term damage. Good. Like I didn't know I had like hot take.
You don't
gonorrhea
want
is bad.
them.
Yeah. like, and you have to take antibiotics. Like I already have to take enough for my goddamn strap.
I mean,
which sometimes I'm like, is that throat gonorrhea? No.
Yeah, no. Antibiotics is not great. That it's like, I'm like, wait, you mean your throat gonorrhea?
What?
It might be.
No, but okay. Either way, I think this is a serious issue, and this is like actually why I wanted to do the video, because I do think that PrEP is an amazing, important thing, but it is wild the stories that I hear from friends who are like, I wanted to use a condom, and they were just like, sorry, like
people refuse to.
They're
use
like,
them,
are you on? And constantly, it's like, wait, but aren't you on PrEP? And it's like, yeah, but I don't know you well, and I don't trust you.
And there's a lot more than HIV that can be transmitted, right? Like,
that's the part that I think sometimes is getting lost. Like when people are like, oh, I'm on PrEP now, it's like, okay, but like maybe still wear a condom if you don't know them that well, or like, I kind of have been feeling that, especially because I know that gonorrhea is like really common in Toronto right now, and like I've heard lots of stories about it that I've just been like, oh God, like that's a really, in my opinion, important study as like a gay man. I'm just like,
I think like people have to take a level of their own health into their own responsibility and make those choices. I think as long as people are educated,
understand that.
I mean, obviously it's not great if there's a burden on the health system that all these people are taking antibiotics. It can like perpetuate the problem of antibiotic resistance that we're seeing in society. So it's not great to be catching these things and taking these pills all the time. But obviously from your own personal responsibility, like, if you care about that and don't want to get any like viral disease or STI or HIV, then you would be like, you can be on PrEP and you can wear condoms or have safe sex. But I would just say, like, obviously lots of people do that, and every now and then find themselves in a situation where they're maybe drunk or just like not thinking properly and make these choices without meaning to. So I think there's a difference. There are some people who are like, I will never have sex with a condom, which to me is weird, especially if like the person you're with wants you to. That's a whole different thing. But there is a section of the population who probably has it happen every now and then or once in a while, and that's why it is important to have something like PrEP, because obviously even though HIV is treatable and like people can live perfectly healthy, normal lives with it, it's a different kind of thing than getting an STI. And so it stands to reason that is the one that has had so much more focus on it.
And it is, so it's just like, it is interesting if those things are going up though, because we've revolutionized the ability to be less scared in some ways of HIV.
And like the gay male population in general, of course there are other populations that deal with this, like it was so focused on HIV and AIDS for so long, so the fact that doesn't have to be as strong as a fear, I think kind of blinds people in a little way to like the other issues that just like even straight couples have to face around STIs. Like because all we've been told growing up is like, be careful, don't get AIDS.
Yeah.
Like the first thing that happens when you come out if you're young is people start being like, well, I don't want you to get sick. And you're like,
Yeah.
Okay. So then you find out, oh, there's this pill that can stop that. I think a lot of people just like, don't think about it.
Yeah, you're so right about with awareness and knowledge taking agency, because I kind of think so much about that now with COVID. I'm like, we do that every day. Like we all have now
You
learned
have to assess your own comfort and risk
to deal
and
with
take
death
care of your
and disease. Like it's really morbid, but we've all had like a huge lesson in like risk and just sort of using scientific knowledge to figure out your own comfort level with things. And so I'm like, I think that's what I mainly am saying is like, I want people to understand that there are other risks to unprotected sex if on PrEP, and then you can go forth and make that decision accordingly.
Yeah.
My worst, the sad part would be when someone's like goes on PrEP and is all excited and then doesn't realize when they get gonorrhea,
Right,
like,
oh
oh
my God,
wait, like I wouldn't have got gonorrhea if I had a condom on.
Yeah.
Like that's the fear, because I think I almost kind of had that. I kind of like forgot about gonorrhea.
Yeah,
like, I mean,
yeah.
I like always just like vowed to myself. I was like, Greg, just always wear a condom. And I think they're sexy. Like what happened? Why are they like, I've always been like, what? Like the first time I was taught about sex, it was like, put on a condom. And it was like the hottest thing ever. It's like, that means you're having sex.
Yeah.
Because it was like, we were never ever, I'm sorry, we're going to do our Catholic school episode, an abstinence episode soon. And I'm so sorry about your education, but like for our education,
Never got it.
Like it was like, they just taught you wear a condom. There was no discussions around whether you did or didn't. Like they were talking to kids in grade 8 and grade 9. They're like, we're not going to be like, do you want to have a baby? They're like, no, everyone, this is how you put on a condom. And it was like the first time that I was in school, like touching a fake wooden dick, and I was like putting a condom on it, and I was like, this is so hot.
That is so funny.
But like, I'm like, why, where did it become not hot
I don't
to
know.
people? Like I don't get it.
I think to some people there's like just there can be complaints around discomfort or like it not feeling as good because you're like basically providing a barrier to sensation. Do you know what I mean? That's why I think like there are condoms being developed or like marketed now that are like, it feels like you're not wearing one.
Yeah.
So I think like a lot of people who are like, I don't wear them, it's because they've gotten their mind that it's like not as good. It's not worth it.
And we did those when we were doing the porn episode. There was all those studies about how unprotected sex in porn has gone up so much, and so has the rate of unprotected sex. Like seeing it in porn.
And I think on top of porn perpetuating it, because obviously, I mean not obviously, but in a lot of porn they're like all tested before they have to make sure that they're not spreading STIs. Not to say that that's always happening.
I honestly am like, yeah, when's the last time you've seen a condom in porn? Like, wow,
rare. Yeah.
And I remember like a few times being like, wow, there's a condom.
And on top of that, going back to just like any like the risk, I think for some people is sexy, right? Like by not wearing one, there's like a turn on that there's like some level of risk or like it's different. I wanted to go back to like the how you mentioned short-term and long-term effects of PrEP.
Like you mean the side effects?
Side effects,
Yeah, okay.
So both, as you mentioned, it can be like nausea, headaches, diarrhea. These are the things like you might experience. Some people that could last up to a month. Like it can take a while for your body to adjust.
1 to 10% of people who
Yeah.
take it.
Yeah. There's lots of people who take it, don't really feel any of this, and are able to just kind of like go on as though they haven't taken a new pill. But it's worth knowing that. And there are long-term side effects like a loss of bone mineral density, liver health, and kidney damage that have occurred. So,
But I read that it was like that they will test your kidney before giving it to you, and then
I think if you're on PrEP for an extended period of time, so say you did have a reason to be on it, or you had a partner who is, has HIV and you want to take it all the time, I believe it's healthy to be like talking to your doctor about testing your blood on a regular basis.
In Canada, which is the website I was reading from, they said that like before you go on PrEP, they test to make sure that you're HIV negative, and they test your kidneys, just because it can like increase what's creatinine? It can for some reason increases creatinine, which is like can put a strain on your kidney. But at least you'll get tested for those things before. Yeah,
so for the most part, I think it won't. But it's good to know. Like obviously, taking anything perpetually forever is going to have some impact on your body. So it is like weighing that cost balance of like how often are you needing it? Because I think it's not recommended that you're constantly coming on and off of it. But that
you
again,
can
like
do
talk
that.
to you can, and I think you should just talk to your like health professional. Like go to an STI clinic. They can give you the advice.
And I've heard,
there.
I read lots of different, like I read things that were like, it's
the nice
totally
thing
safe to go
here
on.
in Canada, at least, is there's lots of sex clinics that aren't, if you did not want to have to face like your doctor because you felt embarrassed, like these people, like where you go and get your STI checks or anything like that, they're like, at least the one I've been to, so friendly and so sex positive, and just like they're there to help you learn and keep you safe.
My doctor loves talking about gay sex.
Oh yeah, like I mean, I'd be happy to talk to mine about
Like,
that
he's
too.
so
It's
funny.
just,
He's like,
some
so
people are
how's
scared.
like banging the boy? Like he says like the
Oh my
funniest
God.
thing. Yeah, like he's like this older
How's
man.
banging the boys?
Well, I remember when I first started going to him, he was like, are you like? Now I'm like, does everyone get asked this?
It's like, does he not know you're gay?
No,
Are you
like
gay?
No, it was like when you first start going to a doctor, like I don't know if it was like my vibe or I'm like, it's really cool. If,
No,
like,
I think
he
they
asks
have to
every
ask
guy.
you.
It's like, do you have sex with men or something? And then I was just like, yeah. And then he was like, oh well, I've been working in the
obviously.
church and Wellesley community for years. I have tons. I'm so good with gay guys. Like he kind of like made it be like, oh my God, another one to my roster of my amazing care. So he's like, I don't know. It's just like his vibe. It's like, I think he's kind of like, okay, here's this like boring vanilla white guy coming in, but he's like, but he does have gay sex. And he's
got a little bit of a twist.
Yeah. He's like, so the party drugs, which ones? Like all this
Oh
stuff.
my
like,
God.
And it's kind of nice because you're like, whoa,
Right.
like
You
I'm
feel seen.
Yeah. And you're like, it's hard. Like when you ask to a really specific question, it's like,
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes people are waiting around for their doctor to like, maybe they're not willing to say the thing because they're like nervous, but like he really does seem to go down a list of like intense questions where I'm like,
Just come straight out.
yeah. And he's like this like 65-year-old man who also has gout. And I'm like, yeah, cool, my brother. But yeah, like does yours talk about,
Actually,
like he's talked to me about prep before.
Yeah,
like,
no, I've never really talked to my doctor about being gay, to be honest.
really? Wait, what?
Yeah. No, like she definitely knows, and it would have been like on my intake form. I've just been with her for so long, and I've only ever really gone for like other health concerns fully unrelated to.
Maybe he really has been in the church and Wellesley community for so long that he is such a good gay
Yeah,
doctor.
like obviously I would feel comfortable talking to my doctor about anything, but it's like not that none of those things have really been.
Yeah, no, what it is like I go in because my foot hurts, and all of a sudden I'm getting like drilled about gay sex.
Okay, yeah, that's never ever.
But like not in a bad
That's so
way, in a
funny.
way that I'm like, yeah,
like,
okay.
and I'm
like-
getting absolutely drilled on prep.
yeah, like he's just like, oh wow, your foot hurts. Do you want to go on prep? I'm like, what? I'm like, yeah.
I don't really have much else to say.
Me neither. I think it's really fascinating. I think it's cool that science has come so
Yeah.
far. The main point I think I really wanted to hit was just like there are risks to unprotected sex, even if you're on prep. And I just want like everyone to know that.
Yeah, and yeah,
Including me.
yeah.
And now I'm like, do I just go on prep too? Like,
Yeah,
know
I think
what-
it's cool. I think I've seen a pretty big transformation. I remember almost 10 years ago learning about PrEP. Like, not that that's when it came out, but I remember starting to see it being marketed in Toronto and having those first moments of like internal shame. Like, not that I was taking it or was thinking of it, but I was just like, oh, like, what? I would not take that, you know? So it is nice to feel like so many of our friends are comfortable and confident to take it and talk about it. And it doesn't have to be shameful, because you could also be like worried people will think that you're like being too sexually promiscuous.
well,
You might not
yeah,
be, right?
that's
Like,
the issue with like what that study was trying to say. They're like, in order to, and I think why we've had such a better grasp of this because of COVID, it's just like, it doesn't mean anything to try and be safe and lower your risk. Like, and it's just like truly everyone who has sex with men, whether you do like once every 5 years, never, like you're just at a higher risk. Even if you're someone who's like,
not everyone
I'm-
who has sex with men who have sex with men.
Oh, sorry. Or, but like, yeah. Sorry. In our communities or places where HIV is high, it's like, there's just a certain point where there's like, needs to be an acceptance that the level of risk is higher from like an epidemiological perspective. And there should be no shame in that. And even if you're like a needle user or something like that, like there's just like a certain point where there's just statistics that add up that like, I think that's what we've learned through COVID is that we're looking at everything as these like large scale numbers, and it takes that sort of like personal shame or attachment out of things in some ways, because you're like, okay, I'm just like a statistic, and therefore I should just listen to, like, I know who I am and I'm part of the statistic, so what do I do now? But yeah, like I do feel like we live in a really weird time of like risk assessment through knowledge of diseases is like so normalized. Like even like your fourth dose, like all these things, it's like all these things that we're constantly thinking about, like, do I wait for the new vaccines in the fall or do I get my fourth dose? Everyone says get your fourth dose if you can. But like, you know what I mean? Like I'm about to go get my fourth dose, just being like, okay, that's my decision about my risk of dying from this random disease or getting long COVID. Like it's just like a calculation that I didn't think like all of my, like the group chat was going to be about. Even now monkeypox, which we have to do an episode about. Like we're constantly calculating like
our own self-risk and decisions.
Disease through scientific breakthroughs. Yeah. What it means to be alive. It's pretty amazing in the end of the day. It's an amazing feat of science.
Choice fatigue, you know? Like I'm someone who's like, I don't want to making all these decisions for myself. It's hard. You know, that's why there's so much controversy around a lot of these things. Like people just like don't know what the right answer is, and there's lots of different ways to look at it. And not that I'm like justifying people who are like anti-vax or anything, but I understand why there's a lot of fear around things. And the more decisions like this we have to make, the harder it can be for people, and the more sort of like divided we become around it.
And it's interesting, the choice. Like I think that some people think of a choice as an action, and they don't want to do an action because they're like burnt out. Like the action feels like more of a reaction to something, and just doing nothing feels easier. Yeah. When really it might not be the right decision. Okay. Wow. Should we do one about fourth doses? No, I guess that's like, are we COVIDed out?
Like a bit, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna get mine.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna get mine.
About it. It's like crazy, how it's been like I don't mind learning about COVID like still, but I feel like I don't like teaching about it that much because it feels exhausting. Yeah. But maybe I'll get inspired. We're about to go on like a little break. I mean, like, the podcast will still be going, but like it might be rejuvenated.
Yeah, like if something crazy happens, like Will Smith got slapped on a red carpet, we're not going to talk about it for 2 weeks. No, in August we're going to.
Oh, true. But yeah, next week. Whatever.
We're going off grid. No reception, baby. When we come back, the video's going to be like, no phones. Is it the cure to everything?
Okay. You're going to lead the way out?
I said peace.
Bye.